At first, it looked like just another teenage runaway. 14-year-old Natasha Ryan left for school one morning. She never arrived. She never came home. No signs of a struggle, no witnesses. She was simply gone. The community feared the worst, especially with a known predator nearby. Leonard Fraser, otherwise known as the Rockhampton rapist. But he was already serving time for one murder. And soon, he confessed to killing 4 more girls. One of them was Natasha. Her body was never found, but the town believed her dead. So did her family. They held a funeral, they mourned, and the case seemed closed. Fraser's murder trial was underway. Natasha's name was on the list of victims. Suddenly, the police get a tip. Inside a house, just a few miles from her family home, they find her alive. She was hiding in a cupboard. She'd been there for nearly 5 years, living in secret with her boyfriend Scott Black. Out of sight, out of reach. Natasha never left the house. When visitors came, she hid in a cupboard. Scott kept her out of sight while he went on with his own life. At one point, he even went so far as dating her sister. Natasha said the lie had snowballed. She didn't know how to stop it. She felt trapped by it. The Rockhampton rapist was off the hook, at least for her murder. Scott was charged with perjury for lying about her whereabouts. He served 1 year in prison. But the story didn't end there. After his release, Scott and Natasha stayed together. They sold their wedding photos to a magazine for a couple $100,000. They went on to have 4 children. Things appeared to have worked out for them. But looks can be deceiving. June 2024. Police arrived at a Rockhampton golf course on a welfare check. They found Natasha Ryan dead. She was 40 years old. No foul play was suspected. It was just a quiet ending to a story that had once gripped the world. It was on a gray, stormy afternoon in 1957 that Lawrence Bader took a boat out onto Lake Erie. Hours later, he still hadn't returned. He left behind a pregnant wife, 3 kids, and a mountain of debt. The next day, authorities found his boat, battered and drifting. As for Lawrence Bader, he was gone. No body, no clues. Everyone simply assumed he drowned. Meanwhile, his family collected the $40,000 life insurance policy. But then, 8 years later, a family friend sees a man that looks exactly like Bader. But the man claimed he wasn't Lawrence. He said his name was John Fritz Johnson, a popular radio host in Omaha, Nebraska. Charismatic, well-known, married with 2 children. Johnson claimed he'd grown up in an orphanage and built his career from nothing. So confident in his identity, he agreed to be fingerprinted to quash the ridiculous accusation. The prints were a perfect match for Lawrence Bader. The news broke fast. Johnson's new life fell apart. His second wife annulled their marriage, and Bader's first wife was forced to return the insurance money she had used to raise their children. Johnson, now Bader again, stuck to his story, that he suffered from a bizarre case of amnesia that had wiped his memory clean. Almost nobody believed him. He died of cancer only a few years later, taking the full truth of his disappearance to the grave. In the burgeoning folk scene of the early 1970s, Shelagh McDonald was a rising star. She released 2 albums, and her voice was gaining attention. Her future looked bright. Then, without warning, she vanished. No farewell, no trace, just gone. Friends, fellow musicians, fans, no one knew where she went. In the pre-internet age, her disappearance became a collage of rumors and whispers, a question left hanging in the air, and for over 30 years, no one heard from her. Then in 2005, her old albums were re-released on CD. Interest in her story returned. A Scottish newspaper ran a piece asking what had happened to the lost folk singer. Shortly after, she surprised everyone by walking into their office. She told them what happened. It began with LSD, just one bad trip. Hallucinations, paranoia. Her mind unraveled. She said the acid had ruined her voice. Her parents, already skeptical of her career, urged her to give it up. And she did. She got married, and together they lived a transient life. No permanent address, no music. For decades, she moved quietly from place to place. Then one day, she read the article about herself. She couldn't believe it. It seemed that people were still interested in her and in her music, so she came back. In 2013, Shelagh McDonald performed live for the first time in over 40 years. The voice had changed, but her spirit hadn't.
Come all you fair and tender girls, but flourish in your prime.
It was during the early days of the Great Depression, when a low-life drifter named Connie Franklin arrived in a small farming community looking for work. He soon found jobs cutting timber, and it wasn't long before he fell in love with a 17-year-old local girl named Tiller Ruminer. They planned to marry. But on the night of the wedding, Connie disappeared. At first, the locals thought he'd simply gotten cold feet and run off. That is, until Tiller came forward with a much more horrifying story. She told the sheriff that Connie had been attacked, tortured, and burned alive by 4 local men. She led authorities to a burn site where bones were found in the ashes. The 4 men were arrested. The trial for Connie Franklin's murder began. And then, as the proceedings were underway, someone walked into the courtroom. It was none other than Connie Franklin himself. The prosecution immediately claimed he was an imposter. A fingerprint check revealed something even stranger. The man on the stand was actually Marion Franklin Rogers, an escapee from a mental institution. With the case in chaos, the defendants were all acquitted. Rogers, or Franklin, died for good only a few years later. And the question of what really happened that night in the Ozark woods was never answered. It was August 23, 1912, when a 4-year-old boy named Bobby Dunbar vanished during a family outing to Swayze Lake in Louisiana. One moment he was there, the next, gone. Searchers dragged the lake, cut open alligators, and even dynamited the water, but found no sign of him. His face was plastered across newspapers around the country. After 8 agonizing months, a boy appeared. In Mississippi, a drifter named William Cantwell Walters was found traveling with a young boy who matched Bobby's description. Walters insisted the boy wasn't Bobby, but his nephew, Bruce Anderson, the son of his brother and a woman named Julia Anderson. But the Dunbars were certain this was their son. When Julia Anderson came forward to claim her child, she was met with skepticism. In a controversial custody battle, the court sided with the wealthier, more prominent Dunbar family. Julia Anderson lost the boy she insisted was her son. And that boy went on to live his entire life as Bobby Dunbar. He grew up, married, had children of his own, and passed away in 1966. That should have been the end, but it wasn't. In 2004, one of Bobby Dunbar's own grandchildren convinced her father to agree to a DNA test. The results were unambiguous and heartbreaking. There was no genetic link to the Dunbar family. The man who lived and died as Bobby Dunbar was, in fact, Bruce Anderson. After 90 years, a mother's claim was finally proven right. And the fate of the real Bobby Dunbar remains a mystery to this day.